We're on to the next part of our meeting with the Jehovah's Witnesses as we go through the Enjoy Life Forever book. Last time, the circuit overseer's wife had tried to suggest that Jesus and Jehovah are two separate beings because one is the Most High and the other is just mighty. You'll hear in a few minutes how she was using this to prime the pump for their Almighty God versus Mighty God argument. It's all sort of tied together in their teaching, so I guess this would be a natural thing for them to add in. First, how the name or word Jehovah is everything to them, but also how Jesus is so much lesser and really not someone they want to focus too much on. From my perspective, the Watchtower has basically trained them to believe that if you don't know the very specific name Jehovah, you will be confused. They're even taught that they are confused too, if they're not constantly hearing, speaking, and teaching the name Jehovah. Even Yahweh isn't good enough. And the Lord is far too difficult for anyone to figure out. Does this sound like gaslighting to you?
He's most high.
Yes, he's the most high.
There can be someone mighty, but only one can be most high, okay?
That you alone,
Yeah.
you alone are the most high over all the earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and you can see how it can be confusing, because I know many people still, if you talk to many people, they would associate that with Jesus. And that's not taking any credit away from Jesus, but it's giving the rightful respect to where it all belongs. Jehovah is the Most High. Jesus is his son, who is, that in itself has a title.
Yeah, coming from the same being, yeah.
So
like a human being has a human being, right? Yeah, so human gives birth to human, and
right.
Yeah.
Like there's a father, there's a son.
Right.
So there's the two different identities there. So they're both,
but of the same nature, from the same past.
Spiritual nature. So
Are we on
the
Revelation?
Okay, let's ask the question, then we can kind of go through the scriptures a little bit. So, what does the Bible reveal about Jehovah? So what does the Bible reveal about Jehovah? Even in Psalms 83, verse 18.
Yeah, that he is he's the Most High. He's the creator of all things. He is sovereign. He is love. There's many things we can go through. There's many descriptions. It's really cool to study about the attributes of God, because it's really amazing how they all are together, and he's all 100% all of his attributes. I just wanted to quickly recommend a fantastic book to you guys. I wish these JWs would read it, but I know they wouldn't dare. It's called The Attributes of God, and the author is A.W. Pink, who was a contemporary of Charles Taze Russell and Joseph Rutherford's. It's available free online on a number of places. I'll share a link in the comments. It's a small book and well worth the read.
It makes you feel too like with Jehovah that he would reveal himself to us here more.
Yeah.
It's very humbling to think that as mighty as what he is, he will hear me when I talk to him.
I mean that.
It's just so touching, Because usually whenever we meet someone in a high position, we're intimidated by them. We want to talk to them because we think, they won't be interested in me. But as mighty as what he is, he's interested in each one of us.
So like we were talking a little bit before, we can get confused with titles and names, but we're actually going to go on to that topic. So you did in your pre-study, but why don't we watch the video for many titles but one God? Okay, so I'm just going to play this video. So you can hear.
No, thanks. Personal names such as John. In the same way, God has many approaches. Almighty, Creator, and Lord. He also has a unique name, one not shared by any other God. That name is Jehovah.
So, titles and names. And often in the scriptures, like you mentioned before, like Almighty, that's something identifies who He is.
God Almighty.
God Almighty.
Yeah, and mighty. He's mighty God too.
Mighty
yeah.
God.
Sovereign.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord.
Yeah.
God of armies.
Yeah.
He's referred to as God of armies.
Yeah.
He's the King of Kings. King of Kings. Yeah. All these things.
Holy God. Yeah. So titles, but He also made sure that His name was there too, so those titles can be identified with. It's kind of so what would you say is the difference if you think about that? If you really start to think about that, do you see there's a difference between a name and a title?
Yes, kind of. I mean, it's a title is also a description, whereas his name is also a description of who he is. So, yeah. So they're very closely related.
Yeah.
But do you think one is more significant than the other?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
In what way would you say it's more significant? What are your thoughts?
Obviously, like you said, it sets him apart from other gods, to identify who he is apart from other false gods.
Yeah.
But again, for me, he's like this. It's all encompassing, opposed to the name. But then that name represents his whole person,
Right.
which is so much bigger than kind of like just kind of taking that. I mean, like it encompasses all who he is.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like we said before, like the God of gods, He's God of gods. So why don't we read Psalms 136, 1 and 2. Did you read a scripture yet?
No.
Did she?
I can't remember. I'll read it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, okay, 1 to 3. Give thanks to Yahweh, for He is good, for His loving kindness endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, for His loving kindness endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, for His loving kindness endures forever.
So according to what we just read, who do you think is the God of gods and the Lord of lords? Because many people can say, different things, but who is the God of God and the Lord of lords? Does the scriptures reveal?
So Yahweh or Jehovah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nobody else can take that glory. It
Right.
belongs to Him.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4, Jehovah wants you to know and use His name. So I'll play this video. Another video here. Oh, I know this one. Oh, good.
Does God have a name?
I'm sorry. So you guys can see again. The volume's here if you want to adjust it.
Many gods. The nations surrounding ancient Israel worship deities named Ashtoreth, Baal, and Molech. The first century Christians lived among people who worshiped such deities as Artemis, Hermes, and Zeus, and the names of those gods are recorded in the Bible. The Bible acknowledges that there are many gods, but the name of one God appears in ancient manuscripts of the Bible far more times than the names of all the other gods combined. If you read modern Bibles, you will still find the names of the other gods. God's name is represented by 4 letters. Hebrew is read from right to left. In English, those 4 letters are rendered by the consonants Y, H, W, H. The original vowel sounds used in God's name are unknown, but the 4 letters representing God's name appear throughout ancient Bible manuscripts and have been inscribed in many other locations. In English, a popular rendering of God's name is Jehovah. Another rendering is Yahweh. Some Bibles use one of these forms of God's name in Psalm 83, verse 18, and in several other places. A number of other translations, such as the Hebrew translation of the Holy Scriptures, restore God's name to the locations in which it originally appeared. Since God had his personal name included in the Bible some 7,000 times, he no doubt wants us to know and use that name. In the law God gave to Israel, he told Moses to write, "Listen, O Israel, Jehovah our God is one Jehovah." Jesus quoted that passage from the law, so he obviously knew and used God's personal name. In one of his final prayers before his death, Jesus said to Jehovah God, "I have made your name known."
Yeah, that was an interesting part because there's still to this day you can see Jehovah's name in the tetragrams in some original places, which is very interesting.
I actually have a lot more questions about that with your translation, but remember I made a bunch of notes on some of that, so I'd really like to get into that at some point too. Like we'll stay here for now,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I'd love to talk more about that.
For sure.
As translation of
The New World Translation.
okay, how came about?
Well, all kinds of things like who did the translation and all that kind of stuff, and then just the differences.
Yeah.
Sadly, I still haven't had a chance to go through my notes with them on the articles she sent me. In hindsight, I do kind of wish I had done it there, even with the circuit overseer's wife, instead of the other JW who usually comes. But I was really still trying to pick my battles and not get too aggressive quite yet, because we wanted to focus on finding opportunities to share Jesus with them. If you guys are interested, I may make a video from those notes because I did find a lot of things to refute and did spend quite a bit of time on it. Next, she will point out the video of the Bethel tour that she sent me. It's another one that I had some comments on that I'd love to discuss directly with her. I'm not sure if she's open to that, and in fact, I'm pretty sure she isn't, but I will keep trying.
As a matter of fact, we can send you a link. To some information.
Yeah, she's already sent me a ton of links. Yeah.
But that one video of the Bible tour at Bethel, this is so they have it really nails it on the head because they talk about how they've taken all the different they have all the different renderings of the Bible translations and different scrolls that they're they have copies of prints and stuff. But it shows how there's the respect of the original translation of the Greek manuscript. Yeah, and just trying to get like the message as accurate as possible, and especially putting Jehovah's name back to where it was.
So, well, that was kind of one of the questions, and maybe I'll just leave it for you to send me a link when you can find something. That if they can find any examples of the early manuscripts of the New Testament, the Greek New Testament, actually using the Tetragrammaton.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it's interesting how just in our conversation here, except for the name Jehovah being restored, in the place of God, you can learn the truth about Jehovah God from any Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Because the
Yeah.
thought is still there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you read it in the Old English, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you read it in older English, but it's still the same thought in the
Right.
modern English.
Right,
It would
yeah.
be like if we came in here and we started speaking Shakespearean English
Yeah.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
You would, you know, we may be speaking a little bit strange, Shakespearean
Yeah,
to you,
yeah.
but you would still kind of get the thought of what
Right.
we're talking about,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
You know? And so, but the thing with the approach we take as Jehovah's people is we view the Bible as very, very sacred. We do not, we feel it is an offense against Jehovah personally to mess with his word.
What a claim, isn't it? The Watchtower has messed with the Word of God many, many times, both adding and changing things to fit their made-up teachings. I probably should have questioned this, but I think I was just too surprised to know what to say right then. I'll have to remember it for future conversations about this topic, though. Okay,
It's to mess
that's
with
good to
his
know.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so, even in recent years, we constantly research the latest manuscripts that have come to light.
So when you say we, do you mean you personally, or
Well, not me personally.
Okay.
But, you know.
so the people in the
that are-
organization?
Yeah, when we
Okay.
print, like for example, we print thousands and thousands of Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
And we give it free to people.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
hard copies that are expensive to print.
Mm-hmm.
But their main concern is this is the precious word of God that's very sacred. So if there's a new scroll that comes to light, as an example,
Mm-hmm.
that might be older than the scroll that they have right now,
Yeah.
they study that.
Mm-hmm. Note how she changed now from saying we to they. Next, she'll actually flip-flop between we and they. I think I may have got her a little off her game with that question. But she still has no idea who they even are, does she? Or what their credentials are, or if they even actually study newly found manuscripts at all, does she? They just tell her what they want her to believe, and she believes it.
And any revisions they make, those revisions. And so that is why we feel very confident in the New World Translation, because in 2013, right? 2013, the New World Translation was revised, and it was just in little, it didn't change the thought of the Bible, but if there was any word or little explanation that they got that was a little bit more clear as a result of new scrolls coming to light, they made those little changes, even though they were very tiny little things.
Tiny things can still change a big thing, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
And it might not be
Absolutely.
insignificant because they're just small.
That's right.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It's like with the
Like a comma.
like a comma. It, where a comma is placed is important. You know, like
Well, yeah, and those weren't in the scrolls, right? Those were
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it can change
Yeah.
the content.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why, like when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, then when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and they found God's name in there, and all the rest.
Yeah, that's
then-
the Old Testament, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like,
Then
what, 100
the
years before
Isaiah-
Christ?
Isaiah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus and his followers would have used, those ancient scrolls, you know.
Yes and no.
Because-
I don't know. Like from what I've read about Jesus' time, majority of people spoke Greek, even
That's right.
even in
That's right.
Jerusalem.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they didn't all know Hebrew anymore.
Yeah.
So they would have many times used the Greek instead. So the Greek Septuagint, which still some of them
Yeah.
included the
Yeah.
Tetragrammaton. Most of them maybe
Yeah.
didn't, but some
That's
did.
right, yeah.
So a lot of them would have depended on that reading because they didn't have the scrolls themselves, right?
That's right.
Some I would assume that maybe at the temple they would still use the Hebrew, but yeah, not always. I think
Yeah.
by the time Jesus came, it was more Greek than Hebrew.
Of course,
yeah.
of course. But still in all, he knew those ancient scrolls.
Oh, sure.
And he would have quoted accurately God's name, Jehovah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they would have been in those scrolls.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
because you're curious about how we go about translation.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm just saying that we take it very, very seriously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so-
Well, that's why I just wanted to see
Yeah.
where, if you found, because I've never found any of the earliest Greek manuscripts of the New Testament that ever contained it. It's a minor issue, you know, because we know
Yeah.
who we're talking about, but
Yeah.
just to see why, because I understand you guys have that added in your New Testament, right? All over you have actual Jehovah in the New Testament. Yeah. So.
Well, for example, whenever Jesus,
right.
Jesus would quote from the Hebrew Scriptures,
Yeah.
he would have used the name Jehovah.
Well, in the New Testament, I'm just looking at
Yeah.
the actual recording of the Bible, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
I
there,
do have that somewhere.
Yeah,
In one of my notes.
Okay. If you can't find it, you could just send it to me whenever.
I'll send it to you, but there is, because there's the Septuagint where they would have originally had.
So that's Old Testament, though. Yeah, I'm talking New Testament.
But I do have something like I
For the
do
New
remember.
Testament, okay, yeah. Because I do understand, like the Septuagint of the Old Testament, that would have different copies sometimes did have the Tetragrammaton. That's my understanding. But I'm talking New Testament, though. So like Matthew to Revelation.
having God's name.
Yeah.
Because whenever Jesus would have quoted, and he made many quotes because that was it. He fulfilled the law, right?
Sure.
He
Yeah.
had to fulfill
And
the
he
law.
was quoting from the Greek.
And
So
he would
how
have
did he
used-
do that in the Bible?
But
Like what do the manuscripts say?
Yeah, but he would have used the name Jehovah, obviously, from quoting from the Hebrew Scriptures.
So are you thinking that the New Testament is wrong then? Like that the
No.
writers got it wrong? That they were misquoting
many
him?
translators, we'll get into it later, but many translators, they obscured the name Jehovah intentionally.
Like who?
For one thing, if you go really back, like to the time of Constantine.
No, I'm talking way before Constantine. I mean that, like the oldest manuscripts come way before him, right? So that's what I was wondering. Like if you see it.
You're talking about the various translations.
I'm talking about I'm talking about the earliest manuscripts of the New Testament. So the oldest ones that we have, which we have lots and lots of them, right? So like I'm not talking about like hundreds or thousands of years later, but the ones from the earliest 1st, 2nd century copies that we actually have.
We don't have a lot of those.
Oh yeah, there's quite a few.
There are. But if you look at the back, I don't know if you have the New World Translation downloaded.
Actually, they both have not downloaded.
We just go on the website. Yeah.
On the website,
Yeah.
If you go to the appendix, the restoration of the divine name in the New Testament. So you could read that at your leisure. There's a lot of extra information there.
Is that one that you sent me?
I didn't actually send you that, but I sent you Appendix A4.
C1 is this C1, the restoration
I see, okay.
of the divine name in the New Testament. And in here, just you can read it all. There's a lot of detail in there. You know, if you want to go really deep into it, which is most people don't. You know, they don't want to go that deep into it. But in here, it refers also to Appendix C2, and it lists every occurrence where there was a direct quote from a direct or indirect quote from the Hebrew Scriptures, where the name would have been
Jehovah
used.
would have been. That's right.
For example,
that was something I
see,
was
like this. Okay, okay. So in C2, verses where the name Jehovah is quoted. So okay, I'm going to take you to the book of Matthew, and these are all the references, bibliography to all the verses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they were referring to they would have referred, so they would have also been using God's original name.
So there's a lot of, I'm hearing assumptions. I'm just wondering, like from the manuscripts, do you think that his name was lost from the New Testament for hundreds of years, or?
Well, for example, like I said, in the time of the great apostasy from the Christian church, like starting in the second and third century.
Oh, that was a time of persecution.
That's right.
That's right.
And during that time, we came into a period of the Dark Ages, and there also, as the Catholic Church took on a bigger role in the political scene of that time. They obscured the name Jehovah because they were teaching the Trinity doctrine.
Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to, I think we're kind of skipping into something else here. I just meant like the earliest manuscripts. Like, would you want to stay true to those or make the assumption that Jehovah is in there? Because I understand if you assume it's the Hebrew reference, then you would get the Tetragrammaton. But if you're like, that's all I'm looking for is just the manuscripts of the New Testament.
About where his name would have, where his name would have been.
Would have been, but isn't, even in the earliest manuscripts.
Well, in the earliest manuscripts.
Because that's where I'm thinking, like, wouldn't we want to be true to the manuscripts themselves, or are we saying, no, we're going to assume this over them kind of thing, right?
See, okay, for a list of over 120 languages and dialects in which the divine name can be found in the main text of the New Testament or the Christian Read Scriptures, see Appendix. Okay, so then Appendix 5, the divine name in the Christian Read Scriptures. So it says here, the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures uses the name Jehovah a total of 237 times in the Christian Read Scriptures. In deciding to do this, translators took into consideration two important factors. One, the Greek manuscripts we possess today are not the originals. There is no original Greek manuscript. Of the thousands of copies in existence today, most were made at least 2 centuries. That's why I mentioned in the 2nd century. Most were made at least 2 centuries after the originals were composed. Point number 2. By that time, those copying the manuscripts either replaced the Tetragrammaton with Kyrios, the Greek word for Lord, or they copied from manuscripts where this had already been done.
So Jehovah lost his name in the New Testament then for a period of hundreds of years? Is that what it's saying?
Yes. The
Really? Because you would think that, like, Jehovah always said he would preserve his word, but he didn't preserve it for a few hundred years and it was gone completely? His own name, which is so important?
This is why we take it so seriously to restore the name. Yeah. Because these copyists, like it says 2 centuries after, and like you said, that's
the thing. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And we do have early manuscripts, like
not of the Greek.
Yeah.
We have copies, but not the original.
Yeah, the earliest back manuscripts that wouldn't we look at those as like the ones that Jehovah preserved for us to use?
But those were copies. There are no originals.
Right. Yeah. There's no originals of the Old Testament either. Yeah.
Well, there are like the Isaiah scrolls, which were like 200
those are still
years
copies
ago,
though.
right?
But those are still copies.
Yeah. But the thing is, there is no original copy of the Hebrew Scriptures.
Yeah.
There's no original
So it was
copy
lost.
of the Greek. So
how did they lose it?
They didn't lose it.
But because it was translated all over the place, so it would have been there. Like, there was no like governing group that came in and said no more.
But it was, and that's the point, and that's why we take it so seriously.
How is that? There was no organization back then like that.
Well, you think of too, like even like the persecution that was taking place.
Yeah.
Like Tyndale, he was burnt.
Oh yeah, that was many years later, but
strangled. But still, because of the opposition of bringing the truth to the people.
See how she's throwing Tyndale in there as if he was trying to bring back the name Jehovah that had been lost, and that's why he was martyred? A bit of sneaky historic revisionism there, isn't it? Actually, quite a bit of historic revisionism that I so badly wanted to get into with them, especially the so-called Great Apostasy that they love to claim happened to the early church. I noticed how multiple times she also tried to tie the doctrine of the Trinity in with the so-called removal of the name Jehovah from the Bible. But getting more into it would have taken us down another rabbit trail, and we had already been talking for quite a long time at this point, and we needed to get going soon. So I held back at that point.
But Jehovah, over time, has made sure that it was restored.
But that's the thing. Like I still look at the early Christians that were being persecuted. They were copying still. Like they were dying to copy in the first centuries,
right.
the first 2, 3, 4, 5 centuries. They were just going through and copying. They were translating it in other languages, and
That's right.
it was all over the place.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there was one group sitting down saying, "Let's do this. Let's make sure we're in charge of all these copies." Right? It was just going everywhere. So
That's right.
And yet, you think Jehovah permitted for his name to be completely removed for hundreds of years?
Well, there was a period of dark ages for centuries.
Yeah, that
And
was
you know
that
what?
was quite a bit
Even-
later. That
but-
doesn't have anything to do with it, though. Sorry.
No, but that was 200 years after.
Oh, the Dark Ages was
like-
much after that.
No.
That was hundreds of years later.
No, but 200 years after the early Christian congregation was established. We're talking about like the early Christian congregation when we read in the Acts of the Apostles.
Yeah, lots of
Wait.
congregations were, all
So-
over the place, yeah.
That's right. But the Bible foretold a great apostasy.
Right.
And we're getting,
After
we're,
my-
getting,
we're-
we're
Yeah,
getting
that's probably
towards
another
something
topic,
very
yeah.
nice. But see,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what the Bible predicted would happen, that there would
Oh,
be.
do you have to go?
I was watching the time.
Oh.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
And that's exactly, Debbie's just mentioning it there. Okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
see that. But that's what we're gonna get into. Jesus said, after I'm going, expect that there's going to be a persecution and opposition.
Yeah. And he says oppressive wolves, he says, will enter into the congregations and will not speak the word of truth.
Yeah.
So he foretold.
Yeah, I think Peter says, and they're here, right?
Yeah.
It's like in Peter, he's
It
like,
was
yeah.
started,
in the weeds,
but with
yeah.
the death of the apostles, this is when the great apostasy
Exactly.
began to start.
Yeah.
And with that,
Oh, well, it's even before that, right? Because Peter was saying in 2 Peter, right? Like, they're here. This is,
it
they're
was
here
starting.
now.
It was starting then.
There's already,
It
there's
was
false
starting.
teachers.
But when they,
After Jesus.
but when they died, when the apostles died, then there was no restraint, and that's when all the corruption started to come, and all these, the tampering with the scriptures. It's just like the Jewish people.
Wow.
They wouldn't pronounce the name Jehovah. Like, what
So do you
superstition is that?
do you believe that the Old Testament was tampered with too then, or just the New Testament?
The reason, of course, there's inaccuracies and everything, but the more manuscripts you have, it's just like students in a classroom. If 30 students are told to write word for word what the teacher says, everyone is
sure.
going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
when you can put all of them together,
Yeah.
you can figure out the
You can figure out,
inaccuracies.
right? Yeah.
And so it's the same with these manuscripts. Like the manuscripts, through a comparison of text, you can find out where discrepancies enter and what is accurate and what is inaccurate. But with the apostasy, and like I say,
And
with the
Jesus
beginning
talks
of
about this,
the
yeah.
apostasy coming, and with the influence of the Catholic Church, and they're instituting the Trinity doctrine as the official teaching of the Church, that's when the name Jehovah, they did not want to see the name Jehovah in there, because then that would confuse their promotion of the Trinity doctrine.
Yeah.
I know this is
That doesn't make any sense at all.
But that
No,
is what-
that's
no,
not my
it doesn't
understanding.
But that is what
No.
happened.
But it-
that is what
How do you
happened in
know?
history.
How do you
Because
know?
that is in history.
Well, that's
If-
not what history I've read anywhere.
Yeah, it's
We're
in the
gonna get
history.
into it, yeah.
But if you want to research it, it's in history.
Sure,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah.
We should.
The meeting.
Yeah, we should get going.
My
yeah.
husband's gonna be. He has the vehicle. He's kind of doing his own thing for a little while. So we need to. Time flies.
We will and Jesus really talked about this is a whole other topic. But
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we might need to like take a break from a chapter and get into some of this stuff and then get back to the
Yeah.
next chapter or something
Yeah.
at some point.
How long
At
did
some
it take
point.
you to get 4 chapters done? Probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But
we
the
don't.
time of Constantinople, that's the interesting part of history. And that's
sure,
where
yeah.
a lot of the deviation came.
that's where you see so many different understandings in religions. Because before, when Jesus was made possible here, it was clear. But then again, there was opposition where the Pharisees were against him. But it was clear as day that this is the Messiah. He was the one who was fulfilling. But then he had said that after my going, there's going to be oppressive wolves that enter in the weeds, and he's going to let them all grow until the conclusion, and then the end. Anyway, we'll get into all that. But okay, so how about you say a very quick clarification?
Yeah. Okay. Jehovah, we certainly come before you as your humble creatures, and we know that the main thing, Jehovah, is that we come to love you and serve you to the best of our ability, and that you know the hearts of us all, and you can help us to come to know you, and not only know you, but to love you, and to worship you, and to know you as the only true God. So may you help us and help these two dear friends of ours as they explore their study of your word, the Bible, and may your spirit be with them. We ask this, and we also ask forgiveness for our many sins in the office of your Son, Christ Jesus.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
It was really, I hope you'll let me come again.
So that's the end of this meeting. Next week's video is going to be very different than what I've been sharing so far with you. For that meeting, we went to one of the JW ladies' homes. Because of that, we did not record the conversation. What we decided to do instead was record a kind of debrief immediately after we left the meeting, sharing how we thought the meeting went and what we discussed.